12 o'clock on your Wednesday afternoon now. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you, and Jack Veltri didn't get sick of me from 9 until 10, so he's back with me for the next 3 hours. How we doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Got a quick workout in.
Yeah.
Got some lunch in me. I'm refueled, ready to go, and ready to fill in here these next few days.
Well, this is kind of a precursor of beginning next week. I'm going to get a whole extra hour out of you every single day. We're going to start rocking from 9 to 11 every single day with the extra point.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. This is something that we've been trying to figure out here for a little bit now. You know, that 10 o'clock hour. It's always kind of weird only being there for an hour and then going right back to my day. But I'm glad I get to spend an extra hour with you every single day. And hopefully you don't get sick of me.
No.
After that. So.
Listen, I enjoy every aspect of doing radio. I would much rather have somebody to talk to as opposed to doing more solo stuff. I do it when I need to, but I much prefer having somebody to go back and forth with. So appreciate you being flexible as always and not getting sick of us yet.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I love doing it with you, and thankful for you guys for letting me come aboard and do this for over a year now. It's been a lot of fun.
So this time yesterday, you were over at the football facility here, Coach Beamer, as we're going to do every single Tuesday, basically now from now until almost the end of the year with his regular Tuesday presser, which of course we'll always have for you here on the halftime show. And yesterday was 19 days away from kickoff. Today's 18, so we're starting to ramp up and get a little bit closer. Still, kind of have the same questions. I don't know if I learned anything new necessarily from hearing from Beamer, but if anything, I guess it just continues to reinforce some of the same narratives we've had about this team throughout the course of the offseason so far.
The thing that I think I wouldn't say that we didn't learn anything necessarily. I kind of disagree on that. The only thing I would say we kind of did learn, and again, you take it all with a grain of salt and you just don't put too much stock into it, but what he had to say about the scrimmage is always something noteworthy, right?
Right.
In that, like, as we'll get into, the offense, didn't turn the ball over, like key details like that. That's always good to hear. But again, it's just a scrimmage. So, he's not going to say necessarily, he'll be honest sometimes. I think last year, trying to remember, like he was pretty honest about, things were not, going great at times. Like I remember he was talking about the kicking competition not being in a great spot going into the season. Of course, he was right about that as it turned out. So you get little details like that and you just kind of take it for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing, though, that was new information that he had to be asked about was, of course, the AP poll coming out on Monday, which put South Carolina at number 13. First time since 2014. As we talked about, they've been even ranked in the preseason poll. And we'll go cut number 11 here, Kale. This is Coach Beamer yesterday talking about handling those expectations of being number 13.
Yeah, I'd rather be ranked high and have those expectations than not. As a coach, when you're not ranked high like we were last year, it's great because you can use that as fuel and motivation. But we want to be a team that's consistently ranked high in the top 10, top 15 going into every single season because it means we did some good stuff the year before and we're expected to do stuff again. And the best teams in the country year in, year out, they're in those preseason rankings every year. But those teams and what we're continuing to convey to our guys, and we've been talking about it since the beginning, is all that matters is just what we do from this point forward. If you had a good season the year before and your quarterback returns, you're probably going to be ranked pretty high, and that's what we are. Now, do I think we're a good team? Heck yeah. And we also have a lot of work to do, but as you saw last year, there's a lot of teams that are every year. There's teams that are ranked in that preseason top 10, top 15 that won't be at the end of the season, and there's a lot of teams that aren't right now that will be at the end of the season as well. So just making sure that our guys understand every year is different, and we didn't really listen to it when everybody was telling us how terrible we were, maybe a little bit, but we don't need to be listening to it now when everybody's telling us how great we are, because you say, all right, we're ranked 13th, and we are, but I also know there's some prominent media members that put out their own little polls that we're not in their top 25, so we still got a lot to prove, and I know our players understand that and feel that too.
You surprised he didn't name McMurphy and Reese Davis when he talked about prominent people that didn't put them in the top 25 there?
I didn't realize, you mentioned that this morning, I didn't realize Reese Davis didn't vote for South Carolina in the top 25 poll. A little surprised by that since he's typically been pretty high on the Gamecocks. But Yeah, I don't think he wanted to single anyone out. I think a lot of other people probably would, and I'm a little surprised that he didn't, to be honest.
By the way, if you want to go through that whole list, it's Brett McMurphy, Reese Davis, Dylan Sin, Josh Furlong, Greg Madia, Katie Rogerson, Haley Sawyer, and Mike Jacques. Now, again, the latter six of those are lesser-known people, but McMurphy and Reese Davis, obviously well-known around the college football world. Those are the people that he was obviously alluding to there. And McMurphy put it is public last week, like, hey, we've been talking about it for a week now that he doesn't have them in their top 25.
Yeah, and he was just letting it be known. Again, he's kind of used to this, I think, at this point of having these divisive opinions and stuff. Look, I don't understand it personally, leaving South Carolina out of the top 25.
Mm-hmm.
Even, if I didn't cover this team,
sure,
you just see what they are going into the season. And that's what you base it off of. I don't think you look at it from, okay, these are how these teams are going to finish at the end of the year. No,
sure.
I think you base it off of the fact of what they did last year, what they have coming back this year. And the fact of the matter is, South Carolina has one of the top quarterbacks in the country. That reason alone, given also what they have returning, it's like, how could you not pick the Gamecocks to at least be 25, 24? It's a no-brainer, I think, for them to be top 15 going into the year, but everyone has their opinion, I guess.
I do think it's interesting, and Beamer alluded to it. Again, you haven't been ranked in the AP poll, preseason poll, in over a decade, and certainly not any of the times that Coach Beamer's been here. And Beamer is a really good motivator, right? Like, he's those kind of guys, that kind of guy. When we see the locker room speeches and all that kind of stuff, he is really good at getting his team fired up and believing, overcoming and all those other kind of things. And for the past 4 seasons, it's been really easy to just say, hey, look, we're not ranked. Hey, look, they're projecting us to win 4 or 5 games. Let's go out there and prove them wrong. Now it's the opposite. Now it's, hey, there are people that think very highly of you. There are people that think you're a playoff caliber team before even seeing a snap of football this upcoming year. You've got a quarterback that's thought of as a potential Heisman frontrunner. You've got a guy in Dylan Stewart that a lot of scouts may take with the number 1 overall pick if he could go out into the draft as of right now. This is something going into a season we haven't seen in the Beamer era. And I don't think that drastically changes your approach or anything, but it is interesting because you do have to find a different way to motivate guys as opposed to going out there and proving everybody wrong, because for the most part, people do believe in you this time.
They're no longer the hunt. They're no longer the hunter. They are the hunted, right? People are going to, they're not the underdog anymore, right? So they can't really play that card of like, hey, like everyone's disrespecting us, nobody's picking us to do well in the conference. Like, yeah, people are expecting good things from you this season. Like the preseason media poll picked to finish 5th. You even got SEC championship votes. So the expectations are high, right? And I think if you're South Carolina, you take, like I said before, you're now the hunted. I think you kind of take that target on your back and use it to your advantage of like, hey, everyone is picking us to do all these great things, and all these teams are going to try to come in and, beat the crap out of us. Like, that is something that I think Shane could probably use as motivation. Like, hey, they think they could beat you. They want to go in and they want to do it. So he'll find a way to get the guys motivated as if he hasn't already.
Here's a metric for you that I think shows you how much this team's improved and where it sits right now. I don't think you should be storming the field against anyone this year, unless Alabama or Clemson is number 1. Then, if they're top 3, if they're top 4, whatever, and you beat them here at Williams-Brice Stadium, you don't need to storm the field. Like, yeah, it made sense when you did it against Tennessee. Yeah, last year when you ended your streak against ranked teams against Texas A&M, fine. But you're to the point now where you've had enough success and you've beaten those teams enough now. I feel like nothing outside of beating the number 1 team in the country warrants storming the field. That, to me, shows the improvement that this program's had over the past couple of years.
And let us not forget, it costs a large sum of money to pay the fine to storm the field at this point. So, sure, if South Carolina wants to go ahead and storm the field and stuff, the fans want to. I mean, you're not gonna stop people from doing that, right?
Sure.
There are enough people that want to storm the field. But you're right. Like last year, I thought it was a little bit of a stretch to storm the field against A&M because they were number 10 in the country. But granted, they were very good at the time. Carolina was just getting into its groove a little bit as the month of November began. But I say that this year, again, number 13 team in the country, there's no reason to storm the field. You beat Clemson at the end of the year, all right, I'll give them a pass on that one. But
And look,
there's no game on the schedule that's like you should be storming the field. It's just it should not happen.
And hey, I mean, Clemson could come in here number one. Like, again, we look at their roster, we look at their schedule, they have a very good shot at being maybe one of those teams. And again, Alabama, we'll get into this in a second. There's a very wide discrepancy on how good or bad they might be this year, but they are Alabama, and they always have the ability to be a really, really great team. So, to me, though, outside of being that team being number one, you shouldn't be storming the field against anyone because, you know, let's say you beat number 5 Alabama and you're ranked 12th or something like that. No, because now you've started to winning enough of these games. That's the expectation. Storming the field implies that it's a surprise, right? Like, oh, my God, like the Tennessee game. Nobody saw that coming. Yeah. Gamecock Larry may be the only person that saw Carolina beating Tennessee that week, and I think even he may have been down on it going into that game because it was a shocker across the entire landscape of college football, warranted a field storming. And even last year, I think people were still unsure of Carolina sitting at 3-3 of, okay, how's this going to go? And you beat a team like A&M. But now, with the expectations you have and the caliber of talent you have at 2 very important spots at quarterback and edge, no more. You shouldn't be storming the field against anyone unless they're the number 1 team in the country.
Like, dude, you had people, it wasn't a full-fledged storm in the field, but you had people literally running onto the field after the Missouri win.
Yes,
like,
that to me was like, no.
Come on. And I'm glad, I don't think South Carolina got fined for that. And I don't think there were enough people out there. But the point is, it's like, there's only certain games in which you should actually be storming the field. And if you're Carolina now, you're supposed to be this really good team. And, like, you're not going to stop people from doing what they want. Like, the Clemson game is an anomaly in this whole discussion, I think. That's a one-off thing where I think it's okay. But in terms of every other game, I just don't see the need for it. That should no longer be the expectation or acceptable anymore. Yeah. It's like, you're better than that at this point.
Yeah. And again, when they give you the 13th ranking, they think you're at least in the 25 out of 134, you'd be in the top, 20 to 15% of all teams in college football at that point in time?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're thought of as being a high-tier team, at least going into the season, and we certainly hope that they have the ability to back that up this year because, again, you weren't ranked in the preseason in 2023, but we were pretty high on that team, given what you had done to wrap up the season the year before. And to say that was a monumental letdown to not even make a bowl game is an understatement. You can't have that kind of year again this year.
No, you certainly can. I mean, expectations are high, and we're going to see if Carolina can back them up. They were not able to 2 years ago, but this is the year where I feel like they really can because they have the quarterback in place that can really take them to potentially new heights.
There was a wide range of opinions on where Carolina should have been in the AP poll, but they weren't the most extreme. There are a few teams that really people had trouble figuring out where they should land that we'll dive into coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, and our guy Kale producing on the other side of the glass on your Wednesday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry, Kale Wilson producing on the other side of the glass for us here on your Wednesday on the game as we navigate you through the middle of your week and that much closer to football season starting, only 18 days away from toe meeting leather between South Carolina and Virginia Tech. And before we get there, though, before we even get into week 0, it's the Game's Summer Golf Classic coming up next Friday, sponsored by Krager Showrooms, formerly The Nest in the Vista. That's coming up Friday, August 22nd over at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia. Tea time is at 9. Registration begins at 7:30. As always, we'll have onion sausages for breakfast, and those things are delicious if you've not had them before. Mimosa bar provided by Saki's Wine and Spirits, and Firehouse Subs for lunch, which you already know Firehouse Subs is the bomb when it comes to sandwiches. Gonna have prizes and the golf gun to makes its return. We hope to see you out there. If you want to take part, it's only $400 for a team. Give Charwood a call at 803-755-2000 and press the number 2 to sign up for the Game Summer Golf Classic, sponsored by Krager Showrooms. So, Jack, as we continue to talk about the AP poll that came out earlier on this week, and I am excited. We do get a ranked versus ranked Farmageddon coming up next weekend for week 0 with Kansas State and Iowa State. By the way, I saw K-State's truck leaving on Twitter just a second ago, so I'm assuming, do you have to, I guess you got to put that stuff on a boat, right? Or can you fly everything?
What I would imagine is that, so I have not seen the picture. Is it like a 18 wheeler?
It's an 18-wheeler that's pulling out saying, hey, on the way to Ireland, which last I checked, there's no road that connects Manhattan, Kansas to Ireland.
No. So you would probably, what it would be is probably you drive to the coast.
Right.
And you load the truck up on a boat. But like you see cars on there. And I don't think I've ever seen an 18-wheeler. I mean, you're going to have to. I mean, you could always fly it out there, but I don't know exactly how much weight are we talking about.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Easier on the boat, I would say.
I'm wondering, though, because, all right, it's Wednesday. We are 10 days away from this game. Assuming, because you're leaving Manhattan, Kansas now, you're getting down to that coastline generously maybe tomorrow morning sometime. So let's say
Depends on where you're flying. Coming out of.
So let's just say you're going to, I don't know, New Orleans, right, or Corpus Christi. So let's say the ship leaves from the Gulf of Mexico, trying to get to Ireland. Is 10 days enough time, or is that like I don't know how long sea travel takes?
Sea travel. Probably. Again, I'm not looking at a map right now, so I'm not the best in geography. I think I got to see in that. In like high school, but I would imagine maybe like a few, like 2-3 days maybe on ship. But I don't know. Again, I've never seen an 18-wheeler on a boat.
Well, they don't take the entire truck. They take the trailer, and the trailer you'll see
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. When you see like cargo ships, it's essentially the trailer that's sitting there that's being transported. So they would just take the trailer off of the truck. And then when it gets to Ireland, they would hook it up to another cab and take it to where the stadium is, I guess.
Yeah, then that's what they'll do. Yeah, I don't know. My brain was just having a brain fart there. But, yeah, no, I mean, I would imagine that's what they'll do. And 10 days from now, I would imagine, and I'm assuming the teams will probably fly out beginning of next week to get acclimated to Ireland. Like, I'm sure they're going to be practicing there for a few days, kind of like what you would see for like a bowl game or whatever. But
I remember leading up to last year's game, it was all the Florida State players that were making the TikToks of doing the like Irish jig dances, and they proceeded to lose that game. So whichever team has more TikTok content related to Ireland, I'm picking them to lose that game. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you.
Yeah, whoever slams down more beers is probably going to lose the game as well.
Yeah, especially if it's the night before, because that's an early kick over there, or early kick here locally.
It goes hand in hand, so we'll see. We'll see. But I'm glad it's a ranked matchup. Yeah. It makes it even more exciting.
It does. That's going to be number 17, Kansas State versus number 22, Iowa State. And there wasn't a crazy range when it comes to the way people thought of those two teams. Kansas State was as high as number 12 in some voters' minds. Iowa State was as high as 11, with both teams also being thought to potentially be unranked by a lot of people as well. But they were the most extreme examples of discrepancy between where they end up being ranked, or what their high ranking was and where their low ranking was in the minds of a lot of people. A team like Florida, who was ranked as high as 6 by John Wilner and unranked by 8 different people. Much like South Carolina, a lot of people put stock into DJ Lagway and his health obviously is a question mark as of right now. If he is healthy this entire season, they can be really, really good. But if he continues to battle injuries like he did a year ago, yeah, they could definitely be an unranked team when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's going to have to be healthy this season for Florida to really take the strides that, again, you have people ranking Florida as high as 6. I mean, we're talking about a team that would be in the college football playoff undoubtedly, maybe even winning the SEC championship if they are going to finish that high in the rankings this year. Now, again, that's just going into the season and stuff. So you take all of it with a grain of salt. And, I mean, again, it's just people's opinion when it comes to these votes, like whether they're unranked. Me personally, I think they're probably about right at that, around that 15 range, maybe in the back end of the 20s, I would say. But again, a lot of it is going to depend on DJ Lagway and how Billy Napier and this offense operates around him. And that's the other thing. Billy Napier, I mean, is he the right coach to get things done at Florida? Because, people were on him last year early on in the season. You see it in the Netflix documentary. People want him fired and stuff, and he's doing his best to block it out. And fortunately, they win 4 games at the end of the year in a row to kind of like cool off the steam a little bit. But what happens if Florida gets off to a bad start this year? They go to Miami pretty early this season, and then the SEC schedule is going to be an absolute gauntlet. And if Florida's not careful and the losses start stacking up a little bit, it could get ugly there fast.
By the way, I came away from the Netflix thing liking Billy Napier than I did before. My opinion on Brian Kelly didn't really change, but Napier actually seems like a genuine guy. I know we like to clown him a lot, Sunbelt Billy, but he actually does seem like a good dude.
I kind of feel for him because, it's a tough situation to be at Florida just because look at the winning culture they have there and the history. And it's like those fans, they expect success immediately. And when you don't have that and you're losing the way they did. I mean, they got killed by Miami week 1 last year, and you have fans calling for his head stuff. Credit to him for kind of blocking out the noise as best he can and just not really letting it ruin what they got going on the field.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, I'm very high on Florida as long as DJ Lagway can stay healthy, but that is certainly a big if as of right now. But they're one of the most extreme in terms of discrepancy between where people valued them the highest and where people valued them the lowest. Alabama, high as number 2, as low as number 23. Again, Ty Simpson's been named the starter earlier on this week. They're not exactly setting off fireworks in Tuscaloosa for that, so we'll have to see how that plays out. It does have a lot of talent around him, a lot of talent on defense. I expect him to be good, but again, they did underachieve last year. I mean, again, Alabama should have been a playoff team and had inexcusable losses to teams like Oklahoma last year and Vanderbilt that prevented them from making the college football playoff. And again, I don't know how good Kalen DeBoer is going to be there in the long run. So yeah, they could be a top 4 team or a top, an undefeated number 1 team, or they could be, in the 20s and miss the playoff again. I don't really know.
There are a lot of factors to think about with this Alabama team when you look at how the season could come, shape out for them. Number 1, you look at the quarterback situation. Ty Simpson named the starter officially by Kalen DeBoer. Seems like the obvious choice just because he's been the leader in the clubhouse, it seems like, since the spring. And, he's the guy with the most experience. Now, experience, he's got under 100 career passes, well under 100 in his college career. He's had to wait his turn, but he knows the system, right? And so I think at this point you kind of roll with that. And then, you see where it goes. And if it's not off to a good start, you have other guys like Keelan Russell and Austin Mack, who I think Alabama would have no hesitation going and trying to play right away. The other thing is they were awful in road games last year. So if they're going to have success this year, they got to be better on the road. They go to Auburn at the end of the year. They go to South Carolina. They go to Georgia. They go to Missouri. That's really where I think things are going to, it'll be a make or break for them. Like they get LSU at home. They'll have Vandy at home. They go to Florida State too. I mean, the road games this year are going to define what the season looks like. But overall, though, they have 14 total starters coming back, so that's tied for 5th in the country. And like you said, Tyler, a lot of talent on defense, a lot of your offensive lines coming back, a lot of your playmakers. It really shapes up well for them to have a lot of success. But at the same time, it's like, how's the quarterback going to do? How are they going to do in road games? That's really what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, we're going to learn real quick with that game at Florida State in week number 1. And, of course, they'll be coming here for homecoming weekend coming up in the middle of October. Burke McMurphy, he's at it again. He left Carolina out of his top 25 last week and now thinks they're one of the most overrated teams of the playoff era. We'll dive into that coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Wednesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Cale Wilson producing on the other side of the glass for us today. Shout out to our guy Ed Bird, not feeling well today. Hopefully he gets better, as well as Bill Gunter, who of course we're hoping to get back in here very, very soon. Jack, can I give you a hypothetical scenario real quick?
Absolutely.
So let's just say you're at, the state fair, right? I don't know if they have dunk boots at the state fair. I'm sure they do. I haven't ventured around enough to really know, but that's typically kind of like a state fair type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So you have two dunk boots that are right next to each other, and for whatever reason, there's only one ball you can throw. You only have the money for one ball, whatever it is. And you are being asked by Gamecock Nation to make a choice. In one booth, you have Brett Bielema, the head coach of the Illinois Fighting Illini, who had become public enemy number one in the offseason after the fallout of the Citrus Bowl last year. Dunk booth number 2 is Brett McMurphy, who is quickly rising on that villains list for South Carolina fans after leaving the Gamecocks out of his AP Top 25 poll a week ago, and just yesterday, putting them in the top 25 of most overrated teams since 2014. What option is the best to satisfy Gamecock Nation in terms of dunking one of them?
Well, look, I mean, McMurphy now works at On3, so I guess he's technically a coworker, but yeah, I would totally say probably dunking McMurphy at this point. Recency bias.
Recency bias, okay.
I think people have slowly gotten over the whole Bielema thing.
Yeah, now, as soon as he pops up in another press conference and makes a reference to that game, that'll light back up again. But yeah, for recency purposes, in the past, like 8-9 days, Brett McMurphy has quickly angered a lot of people here locally.
He really has. I mean, look, we've talked about it plenty of times now. It's like his AP poll he released last week, and I just did not get it. Like, leaving South Carolina out of the top 25, it just felt like rage bait, honestly. It just felt like something where you just want to cause a little bit of a stir, and that's what he did. And he's got a lot of people that just are really, not liking him right now, and then obviously he had the most overrated teams come out.
And I'm sure he looks at that from the standpoint of, hey, they lost all that talent on defense. Maybe that's why he's not valuing them as high, despite the fact that Sellers and Stewart and guys like that are obviously coming back. But the one I guess nobody was expecting was, and again, he crafted this list himself and does have a format for how he came to these conclusions, but he put out his list yesterday of the top 25 most overrated teams of the college football playoff era, which goes back to 2014. And according to him, I'll read this per his actual article, he assigned point values depending on the difference in the preseason and final rankings, with bonus points for teams that started the year ranked and finished the year unranked. So this isn't him just generalizing things, saying, hey, here's what I think, here's what I feel. He did at least go through the process of creating a system and assigning point values to all these teams to come up with this top 25 list. I still do find it a little hard to believe that Carolina, having been ranked once in the past 11 years, that being number 9 back in 2014, which obviously ended up the season unranked and haven't been ranked in the preseason poll since then, I feel like that is a significant amount of drop, I guess, for one ranking to get you in the top 25 overall in the past 11 years. Again, it doesn't seem like it's his opinion that's creating these kind of things, but that was surprising to see, I guess.
I don't know how you can have South Carolina be overrated when, quite honestly, they haven't been that good over the last since 2014. I mean, let's think about it. 2014, they won 7 games. 2015, they were awful. Yep. 2016, they were a little bit mediocre. 2017, that was the first year Muschamp, right? So they won 9 games, went to the Outback Bowl. Okay,
2016 was his first year.
Oh, 2016. Okay, yeah. So I have my years messed up. So, but anyway, they had that one good year there. 18, 19, 20, whatever. And then in the Beamer era, they've been pretty good. A little bit up and down, though. So I don't necessarily agree with South Carolina even being on this list anyway, because it's not like they've had all this success and stuff, and they choke the big moments. They've been a little bit inconsistent, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, so again, I was surprised to see Carolina on this list, and again, he at least has some kind of metric for determining this. So while that may have been a surprise, the teams at the top of this list, however, were not. And number 1 on his list of most overrated teams since 2014, Southern Cal. And again, there have been many times where they start the season ranked somewhere in the top 15 and either end up unranked or a whole lot lower than they were to start the year. And specifically, let's talk about the Lincoln Riley era of these past handful of years. Every single year, we go into it saying, okay, they got a quarterback, they got talent all around him on the team. Lincoln Riley's got an abundance of resources, but the defense is always a problem. And look, they got better last year, but they didn't have much to clear from the year prior in terms of, being better overall on defense. But Southern Cal, with the resources that they have, with how much that city loves and supports that team, they need to be better than they have been. And I don't disagree that they are perhaps the most overrated program in the past decade.
They totally are right up there. Now, they had those great years with Sam Darnold, back in 2018, 2019.
Yeah, they went to a Rose Bowl. They won the Pac-12. Like, they had some success, but they never made the playoff.
That was the big thing. And again, that was in the 4-team era, so you cut them a little bit of slack then. And you maybe argue that maybe they should have gone the year they went to the Rose Bowl and won. But again, they had 2 losses. So it's like, in that time, you never saw a 2-loss team really get into the playoff. It's very rare. So now you look at over the last 10 years, I do think they have really underachieved in a lot of respects, and especially in that market where you can really bring in a lot of players now with NIL and stuff, and as if you couldn't before. Just a team that has underperformed in a lot of ways.
Since 2012, they've had 3 or more losses every single year, with the exception of 2020, where they went 5-1 but only played 6 games. Like, that shouldn't be what happens at Southern Cal. Yeah, you're not going to go out there and win, a national championship every single year, but think of where Pete Carroll had that program back in the early 2000s. They were legitimately the best program in college football, winning national championships, Heisman Trophy winners, all those kind of things. And everything else since then has just been kind of okay to not great.
They haven't been to a national championship since the mid-2000s.
Yeah, 20 years.
Let alone
it was that Rose Bowl game against Texas.
Yeah, and let alone win a national championship, which obviously they won a lot in the early 2000s. That's just too long for a program that, again, when you have, I know they've had some scandals and stuff and a lot of different things going on there at Southern Cal, but look, new era there, Lincoln Riley. When that hire was made, I think people immediately thought, like, all right, this guy did great at Oklahoma. He did wonders, has a bunch of Heisman Trophy winners at quarterback. Imagine what he's going to do. And he brought Caleb Williams with him. And they weren't that good. Like, they won, 8-9 games, but that's not enough in this era to make the college football playoff now, especially not back in the 4-team era. So we're going to see what happens with Southern Cal this year, but no doubt in my mind, they're definitely one of the more overrated teams in the sport.
Other teams in that top 5, let's see here. Got to have my list back up in front of me. Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU, and Wisconsin. And again, when I kind of think of teams that we typically tend to overvalue going into a season, those are kind of the 5 that typically make that list. Again, Auburn is always expected to be better than they actually are. A&M's perennially 8-4. LSU, particularly under Brian Kelly, tends to underachieve outside of that first year. And Wisconsin, I feel like almost every single year, Wisconsin gets talked about as being one of those teams in playoff contention, and up to this point, they've never been that team.
No, I have no qualms with any of these teams being in the top 5 here. There is one team that I'm a little surprised they aren't higher on this list. How about Nebraska? I feel like they haven't won anything since the 90s, and Tommy Frazier and those guys. Like, what Nebraska, I feel like it gets talked about as this big blue blood program, all this history, which of course they have, all the sellouts and stuff. But I mean, Nebraska, they're not very good. They haven't been for quite some time either.
So I'm trying to see here if I can get the list up of the rankings they've had since 2014, because again, that was about the time so they fired Bo Pelini after the 2014 season, but since then they've only been ranked in the preseason poll. They got ranked in the preseason poll back in 2014, 22nd. They ended up unranked, and then in 2019 they were 24th and ended up unranked. So the difference between where they were ranked and being unranked wasn't that wide. So I guess that's why they're not very high here.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense from that standpoint. And,
yeah.
I would personally have them a little bit higher, but I could totally see the top 5 here making a lot of sense as Most overrated teams.
There's your most overrated, according to Brett McMurphy, and you can send hate mail to his email, apparently, because he will read it if you at least fool him with the headline or what the topic line for that is going to be. We'll come back and wrap up the hour. Coach Beamer coming to the defense of his wife's cookies from the Netflix series. We'll dive into that next. It is the Halftime Show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Cale Wilson producing on your Wednesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Halftime Show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Kale Wilson producing on the other side of the glass. Yesterday, right about this time is when Coach Beamer took the podium to have his usual Tuesday press conference. Now, he did feel the need to clear the air on something that apparently was bothering the Beamer family. That being the problem people had with his wife's cookies that made an appearance on Any Given Saturday on Netflix that we saw last week. Kale, cut number one. Here's Coach Beamer coming to Emily's defense.
Having said that, I do have a statement to make. I think my wife is getting some undue criticism on the cookies that she makes. That's in episode 5, I believe. She's actually had people that have reached out to her on Netflix telling her that she's not cooking the cookies long enough. So much respect for the people that took the time to reach out to her to criticize her for her cookies. But the cookies are the freaking bomb, just so you guys know. And I've got my girls back. She's been making those cookies when I was an assistant coach. She's been making those cookies for my position group that I coached. So the running backs at Virginia Tech, or the tight ends at Georgia, or the tight ends at Oklahoma. And now what you saw in that episode was her making the cookies. She does it every Thursday for all the people in this building. So to the people that reached out to her on Instagram to criticize her and telling her that she's not cooking them long enough, come up here on a Thursday after practice when I put those cookies out and see how fast they're devoured and gone, because they're gone in about 5 minutes as well. And reach out to any tight end from the University of Oklahoma from 2018 to 20, or Georgia tight end 16 and 17, or any Virginia Tech running back if you want to ask about the cookies. So I got her back. Let me say that. The cookies are awesome. She's cooking them the right way. So with that.
That is very modern internet, right? Where you're watching something on Netflix, you see, oh man, I don't like the look of those cookies. Let me go DM the person that made them and tell them they're a terrible baker. Shout out to Coach Beamer. You always got to stick up for your lady. Again, people are dumb.
That's not necessarily how I would spend my time going on the internet.
But this is what people do. Yeah. We're not surprised by it, right?
Like, it's so stupid, to be honest. It's something that, like, shouldn't even give a lick of attention to. But, kudos to Shane for sticking up for his wife. And, that's what any, good guy would do, I would imagine. So, and, he does it on, on a stage where everyone's watching. So kudos to him for that. I will say, I could see why maybe some people will be a little bit critical of the cookies. Like, again, they look very gooey, which is kind of what you're going for.
I say, what's the problem here?
Not really any problem. Do they look a little bit undercooked? Maybe, but again, who cares? It's her cookies. They taste good, apparently. So that's all that really matters, to be honest. So, like, people take time to deal with the stupidest things out there, and to go after someone's wife for the way they make cookies. I mean, come on.
Look, I will take an undercooked cookie over an overcooked cookie any day. You give me something that, like, I can't even pick up without it falling apart and it's gooey and soft, like 10 out of 10 every single time. Give me some ice cream or something with it. Oh, man, now we're talking. So, yes, I will happily, if nobody else wants it, I will happily take an undercooked cookie from Mrs. Beamer and give you my review on that.
Now, I know yesterday John Whittle from the Big Spur asked Shane in the press conference if Emily will bring those cookies in for media availability next Tuesday. Look, I'm right there with John. Like, bring these cookies in. I really do want to try them and see how good they are, because honestly, they do look very good. And look, the life of a wife in the SEC is not easy, and the role that Emily played in the documentary they're talking about, how, like, her family lives and dies with the way things go on Saturdays. Yeah, it's definitely understandable, and you can tell that she takes those losses to heart.
And I don't know if it was Gamecock fans or fans of other fan bases that were doing this, but let's be better than that, people. Come on, we don't need to ridicule people over the way cookies look on television.
There's a line that you don't cross, and DMing someone, telling them, and God knows what those DMs were.
No, I'm sure they were nasty.
Yeah, they again. It's cookies, guys.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that probably don't even know how to bake cookies properly.
This is a classic case. Let's go outside and touch some grass.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah.
Now, what's your go-to cookie? If you can only pick one cookie, what are you going with?
Oof. You gotta go with the chocolate chip, right? I'm a big peanut butter guy, but I feel like a chocolate chip cookie. It's very hard to mess up a chocolate chip cookie. So
Very true.
Give me the classic.
Yeah, I'm probably right there with you. I don't mind a macadamia nut. Those are, I feel like, underrated in a lot of ways. Like chocolate chunk or like double chocolate, where the cookie itself is chocolate too. I have a really bad sweet tooth, so those kind of check my box. And again, if you're undercooking them a little bit, yeah, sign me up.
And again, people eat cookie dough raw. So
Exactly.
what's the difference? At least it's baked enough. So I mean, I see no issue with it.
Again, shout out to Coach Beamer for standing up for his wife's cookies. And, yeah, well, we would certainly love to try those ourselves, and we can attest to how good they are if that's possible. We'll get back into Coach Beamer, what he had to say coming away from the scrimmage yesterday in his media availability. That's coming up next. Halftime show here on your Wednesday on the Game. Hour number 2, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Cale Wilson producing with us on your Wednesday here on the game. Inching ever closer to the start of the college football season, at least, and this is very cool, as I've got ESPN here on the studio. We are starting the Little League World Series stuff today. I believe Irmo's first game is coming up tomorrow, so that'll at least be fun to track over these next couple weeks. Hopefully they make a deep run in this that helps us bridge that final little gap between the summer and the start of football season.
Now, do we know who they're playing yet?
Ooh, that's a good question. I do not. I just heard they were playing tomorrow. See if I can get a Little League World Series scheduled up here, because they have the it's pool play first. Because you have
they're playing the New England Region champ, Braintree American, at 3 p.m. tomorrow. So,
all right.
But I'm not sure. So I guess it is just the New England region. So that's I don't know where that's from.
So now you're known as your affiliation's basically the area of the country that you come from.
Yes.
So yeah, New England, Braintree American, Irmo's representing Southeast. Yeah, and so you got Hawaii, Texas, South Carolina, Washington, Massachusetts, Nevada, South Dakota, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Clarendon Hills. I'm assuming maybe that's in Michigan. Doesn't have a state listed next to it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm looking forward to it, man. I mean, look, Irmo really had a nice little run getting here to Williamsport, and their last game, I mean, we talked about it a lot last week. A lot of fun seeing that team come back in the 6th inning with 5 runs to win it. So looking forward to seeing what they can do here in Williamsport.
Yeah, and obviously if you make it all the way through the American side of the bracket, you take on the winner of International, or if you make it to the American Championship and you lose, you play in the 3rd, 4th game against the runner-up from the International side of things as well. So again, looking forward to following that, again, starting tomorrow with Irmo Little League in their first game again at 3 p.m., which will be on ESPN. Right now, it looks like Puerto Rico and Latin America are about to take each other on, starting things off here in game number 1. Yep, I can see it right there on the TV. So, again, it's going to be fun to track that over the course of the next week or so. Getting back into what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday in referencing the scrimmage from over the weekend, as well as what he's seen in practice so far. Let's hit cut number 14 here. This is Coach Beamer talking about what he saw of the defense in the scrimmage on Saturday.
Defensively, I thought they did a good job of responding. Offense in the scrimmage the other night got off to a good start in their first 4 drives. 2 of them I thought were really productive drives. And I don't want to say defense was on their heels, but they didn't get off probably to as good a start those first 4 drives. But then it was cool to see them respond. We had a goal line period where the defense really responded and flipped a switch and then played well the rest of the night as well. So it was good to see those guys respond. And we played a lot of our young guys, a lot of the guys that competition's ongoing, but a lot of the guys that are returning starters did not play maybe as much as some of these young guys that we need to make decisions on. And then with the kickers, all of them got opportunities the other night, and all of them, certainly had some really good moments, and all of them had, a kick or 2 that they'd like to have back. We kicked a lot, but we're doing more of that now, just trying to figure out what that is or who it is as well. So pleased overall with that.
By the way, Cale confirmed to me Clarendon Hills is in Illinois, actually, but they're representing the Great Lakes. I don't know why the website didn't have their state listed there.
That would probably help, right?
Sure.
Like I don't know where the New England region team is from, but I'm assuming Massachusetts. But again, I don't know.
Either way, getting back to what Coach Beamer had to say there, is there a bigger cliche, especially in fall camp, than the defense is ahead of the offense? How many times in your covering football have you heard that exact phrase?
A lot. You go back to last year, I think we heard it a little bit. And it makes sense, right? Like the defense, especially this year, I think they got a lot. Like they got some guys returning, they got some new guys coming in, but I think it's a lot. I can't really speak on it because I don't know from experience or anything. But I'm guessing the defense is a lot simpler to kind of install compared to an entire offensive playbook with a new offensive coordinator, mind you.
Sure.
And you have a second-year starter coming back in Lenore Sellers, but you also have a lot of new pieces on offense coming in. 3 new offensive linemen are going to be starting this year. You got some new receivers coming in. Running back, we'll see. But again, a tight end's going to be different this year. So I can understand the fact that, yeah, the offense might take a little bit more time to come together.
I thought Preston did a really good job of laying this out earlier on this week when he said, defense is so reactionary, right? You're chasing the ball. And on defense, yeah, 10 guys can mess up, but one guy can come in there. As long as he does his job right, the play can still be effective. So you can have guys all over the place and out of position, but if Dylan Stewart comes off the edge and sacks the quarterback, well, guess what? It was a successful defensive play, as opposed to on offense where you have to have 11 people moving in sync for the plays to be effective. Obviously, offensive linemen holding their blocks, receivers running routes, running backs getting where they need to be, a quarterback sitting back in the pocket and throwing, whatever it may be. So, and especially in Carolina's case, with new guys on the offensive line, several new running backs coming into the fold, new tight ends, there's a lot of pieces on offense that you're going to have to work the kinks out, basically. Now, again, that's why you do these scrimmages, so you can have that done for the most part, by the time the season gets here. But, yeah, that's kind of expected that some of that stuff's going to look a little bit clunky, though it does sound like they were having some success against the defense, at least to start the scrimmage.
Yeah, and like Shane said in that audio clip there, or yesterday in the press conference, they didn't turn the ball over at all in 117 plays, which is definitely a good sign. Now, take it with a grain of salt, because you look at it that way, it's like, all right, the offense didn't turn over the ball, but also the receivers had some drops in the scrimmage from what Beamer said that easily could have been picks if the defense got their hands on it. So you look at it that way. You also look at it from the standpoint of, okay, the offense didn't turn the ball over. That means the defense didn't force any turnovers.
Yeah.
Do you worry about it at all? No, I really wouldn't. Go back to last year. Shane was saying that the offense didn't have any turnovers in that first scrimmage. So there's always going to be the good and the bad from what one side of the ball does, because that means something didn't go right on the other side. So take it with a grain of salt, but it's good to see the offense got off to a pretty good start in the scrimmage, apparently. Again, their first 4 drives seemed to be pretty good. And Shane pointed out 2 of them were really, really solid.
There's no way as a fan base to be ultimately satisfied when it comes to a scrimmage. Much like the spring game, right? Like you're watching an inter-squad game against your own team where, hey, if the offense goes out there and scores 7 touchdowns, you say, what the heck's wrong with the defense? If the offense doesn't score anything, you say, what the heck's wrong with the offense? Same thing with scrimmages here. Everything that you hear is like good for one side, bad for the other. So, yes, it's great why the offense didn't turn the ball over, but then it's like, well, hey, why isn't the defense generating any takeaways? What's going on there? I will say this, though. I have kind of blind confidence, I guess is the right way to put it, when it comes to the defense and generating takeaways, because it's something they've consistently done during the Beamer/Clayton White era. And quite frankly, the defensive staff hasn't really changed in 4 years. Yeah, the personnel on the field has changed, but the coaching staff pretty much has been, with the exception of what defensive line with T-Rob coming in a year, 2 years ago now, that's been the only change. Is that correct on as far as assistants?
You got Sterling Lucas, who's been here for a few years now. I'm trying to think.
Storian Gray's been here the whole time.
Dorian Gray's been here the whole time. You added Jeff Collins, but he's an analyst.
That's an analyst, yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much the core of your defensive assistants has remained the same.
And that goes back to my blind confidence. So like, yeah, okay, the personnel on the field may have a little bit of a question next to it, but they always find a way to generate takeaways. They're an opportunistic defense. That is their identity, and I have no doubts that they're going to be able to go out there and do that once again this year. And they were top 5 in takeaways in the SEC last year. It's the other side that I'm worried about, because they were, 10th in the league last year in terms of giving the ball away 21 total times. We brought up Lenore Sellers and his fumble numbers alone, just him last year, and that's concerning and something you certainly need to get better at.
And the other thing, I forgot to mention this when we were initially talking about the scrimmage, in that let's also keep in mind, Shane did mention a lot of the defensive starters that were returning did not play in the scrimmage. So a lot of the younger guys, the backups who are fighting to make the roster, are the guys that were competing in the scrimmage. So just keep that in mind, that it wasn't what the full picture of what defense. And same goes for the offense too. Probably a lot of rotation going on with Sellers, Luke Doty, get the other quarterbacks in there. So it's not a one-to-one of like, here's how it looks now versus how it'll look during the season. But yeah, no, you definitely worry a little bit about the turnovers from last year. You look at Sellers' numbers last year. He had the 7 interceptions, but he also had 6 lost fumbles on 10 total fumbles in general. So you got to clean that up. You cut that number down maybe in half. You're looking at some games, maybe like the Alabama game last year, where you had some really critical fumbles that led to Alabama being able to win that game the way they did. Kind of thwarted the comeback a little bit for South Carolina. If those fumbles didn't happen, you might win that game. Maybe you're a 10-win team in the college football playoff, and we're having a different discussion right now. But that's not the case. So Sellers, Shula, they've all talked about how the fumbles need to be cleaned up. Now we're going to go out here and see this year if they can really clean up that number. But again, from the scrimmage, I know it's not against your normal defense, but you got to take the positives where you can find them. And the fact that there were no turnovers, I think that's a really good positive for South Carolina.
I think your margin for error this year is going to be really thin. Last year's defense was really good, and I hope it's that good again this year. No guarantees. That's a hard thing to replicate. So I think you're going to find yourself in a lot of tight games with some very good teams. And in those kind of games, turning the ball over could end up being the determining factor, as we saw it happen a couple times last year when you kind of shake things out against teams like Alabama, and how some turnovers in that game were obviously very costly for South Carolina. So you're going to have to make sure you're the team doing more of the taking than giving. In terms of fumbles and interceptions, and hopefully coming out on the positive side of things, because again, I just feel like you're going to be in a lot of very close competitions this year, given the quality of opponents that you have and the questions that we still have on defense.
You have to be. I mean, and the other thing to think about here is that, yeah, you're losing a little bit of your defense from last season. Like, it's going to be a different looking group out there this year, with the exception of a few guys you have coming back. And I say that because you look at how good this defense was last year. Just think about any time South Carolina's offense turned the ball over, and I don't have the stat on me, but look at what the defense was able to do in the drive that followed. More times than not, you're holding them to a 3-and-out, getting that offense off the field and giving the ball right back to Lenore Sellers instead of putting more points on the board for the other team. So you got to hope that that's the case again this year. If you're going to turn the ball over a little bit, is that your defense is just as good as last year. But I don't know if that's realistic, because not everything's going to be perfectly the way it was last year. You're going to probably have some more hiccups this year, but it's going to be interesting to see. We mentioned the defensive staff that has been here, the continuity, how that works, and Clayton White being able to get the most out of his guys along with the assistants. We'll see if that can lead to similar type of success in the field in their 5th year together.
Well, one thing we know is Dylan Stewart is probably going to be really, really good in his 2nd year here at South Carolina. I think you can make a case that he might be the most important non-quarterback of any player in the entire country to his individual team's success. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Cale Wilson hanging out with you on your Wednesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Cale Wilson along with you here as we are brought to you by the Men's Clinic, by the way, in case you didn't know. Also, in case you didn't know, coming up Monday, we start to venture into Charleston. You can listen to the game in Charleston on WIWF 96.9 HD3. So you can hear us here in Columbia. You can hear us in Myrtle Beach, in Florence, and now in Charleston as well. And, of course, you can always take us on the go with the 107.5 The Game app or stream us on The Game TV on YouTube. I saw this list the other day that Pete Nakos put out, and he was on with Andy and Ari of On3 yesterday discussing this list, and it's about the 10 most valuable non-quarterbacks in college football. And in today's world of this sport, we tend to look a lot at your quarterback situation, your head coach situation, as a way of determining what teams are going to be, especially when transfers are as plentiful as they are now, and it makes a lot of sense. So when you look at something like what Pete Nakos put out there, I think it's an interesting thought because it makes you remove the quarterback from the equation to see, how important some of these guys are. And look, there's no denying Jeremiah Smith, number one on this list because he is, quite frankly, maybe the best player in all the country, right? Like I said this earlier, I would not be the least bit surprised if Jeremiah Smith goes out there and has a Devontae Smith-esque year and wins the Heisman Trophy as a wide receiver. He's that freaking good, and he could go be a top 10 pick in the NFL right now if he was allowed to do that. If he was far enough out of high school. But unequivocally, he's maybe the best player overall in the entire country.
Yeah, no, I mean, he totally is. I mean, he's a guy that he was doing things as a freshman last year. You're like, huh? Like, how often do you see stuff like this? And look, I mean, he's a really talented player, obviously. I mean, the best receiver in the country. You could say him and Ryan Williams are 1A and 1B, but there's no denying Jeremiah Smith with his talent. I mean, Will Howard was thrown to him last year, and that connection worked perfectly. So we're going to see what happens this year with a guy like Julian Sayin throwing him, and we'll see if that connection can potentially get Smith to New York for the Heisman ceremony.
Now Julian Sayin's not won that job yet. That's not an open and done deal.
Oh yeah.
But regardless, whoever the quarterback is, even if Jeremiah Smith was not playing, we would still think that Ohio State was a really, really good team. And same thing, Caleb Downs at number 3 on this list, safety for Ohio State. You got Colin Simmons from Texas at 4, Ryan Williams, as mentioned a moment ago, from 5 at Alabama. All these guys are certainly key contributors to their team and, again, are rightfully thought of as some of the best non-quarterbacks in all of college football. Dylan Stewart's number 2 on this list, but I think what sets him apart from everybody else is, I would say unequivocally, he is more of a catalyst to his team's overall success than any of these guys, right? If Dylan Stewart was not returning this year, our panic level for defense would be significantly higher. Like, if Jeremiah Smith wasn't back at Ohio State, they still have Carnell Tate, they still have young guys that they're excited about, like, they'd be fine. But if Dylan Stewart wasn't coming back, then we'd say, oh, God, what is the pass rush going to look like at all? Now it's just kind of, okay, who's going to be the other guy on the other side of the line to complement Dylan Stewart? Like, he really is the straw that stirs the drink for this defense more than anybody else on their respective side of the ball in this list, I feel like.
The way we talk about what South Carolina would be if they didn't have Lenora Sellers on offense, it's kind of the equivalent of the defense if they didn't have Dylan Stewart, right? Like, one guy does not make or break the team, but, like, Dylan Stewart is really, really good. Like, 10.5 TFLs last year, 6.5 sacks. Him and Kyle Kennard were a wrecking machine on the edge for South Carolina defense. Kennard's gone, so the main focus this year is going to be on Dylan Stewart, who's been hyped up as one of the best defenders in college football. Easy to see why. All SEC freshman last year. Unanimous freshman All-American last year. Really talented player. A lot of people are probably going to have their eye on him. I know offensive lines in the country are going to be really honing in on him. That's why it's so important for the other edge rusher lining up opposite of Dylan Stewart to be effective, like a Brian Thomas who had 4.5 sacks last year. But, I think South Carolina's defense wouldn't be viewed the way it is going into the season, or the team in general, if they didn't have a guy like Stewart out there who is really a difference maker in every regard.
And again, no disrespect to the other guys in the list. You got Leonard Moore and Jeremiah Love at 6 and 7 from Notre Dame. Peter Woods from Clemson at 8. Spencer Fano from Utah, who's an offensive lineman at 9. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State at 10. All these guys are quite literally among the best non-quarterbacks in all of college football. But I think if you removed all these guys from individual teams, I don't think the perception of what those teams are capable of drops significantly. As if you remove Stewart from Carolina, then that really changes how we think of this defense, because while you have that, if you can have one dominant pass rusher that's routinely getting to the quarterbacks, making those guys uncomfortable, forcing them into bad throws, the rest of the defense can obviously follow suit and be successful, as we saw a year ago, because, again, when the pass rush doesn't allow those quarterbacks to sit back there and pick defenses apart, the rest of your team is going to be successful because of that.
Like, you look at what this defensive edge room would be without Dylan Stewart. Let's say you take him away. You know, you have Brian Thomas as your best edge rusher. A good one, 4.5 sacks last year. Got overshadowed by Kennard and Stewart undoubtedly. And then after that, you're kind of like, you have a lot of unproven talent, I think, in the rest of the room. JT Gear, who I think we always forget that he started week 1 for South Carolina last year. Crazy to kind of think about. He's got to stay healthy, though. That's number one. You have Desmond Uwazula, another guy in there. You have some other really talented players in that room, but it's nowhere near what Dylan Stewart can really bring by himself to the room. But what he does on the field gives a window of opportunity for someone else to really step up. Because, again, like we saw last year, a lot of the pressure was put on Kyle Kennard trying to block him, and that kind of allowed Dylan to kind of get back to the quarterback and do his thing. And it was vice versa, too. You need to find that good complementary guy that can really create a little bit of pressure and also force offensive lines to really pick and choose who to block, because that's why a big part of why South Carolina's defensive line, I think, was so good last year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting as well. And Andy, Ari, and Pete brought this up on their show yesterday, referencing, again, the similarities between Dylan Stewart and Jadeveon Clowney here at South Carolina. And you know, Pete pointed out something that I'd forgotten about from, you know, Clowney's last year here, where they just consistently ran away from him, right? They would look at the pre-play, the other team would saying, all right, Clowney's lining up on our right side. Well, let's go to the left. Let's run to the left. Let's throw to the left. Let's move the entire play to the left. And if they had a play called and Clowney lined up opposite of what they thought, they'd flip it to where they were going the other way. And if you only have the threat of Dylan Stewart, then there's a possibility that happens again. Like you said last year, you had to come in at both sides. You had to choose, like, all right, we can double Kennard or we can double Stewart. One of those guys is going to run a little bit more free than the other. Pick your poison, right? And that's why this team was so successful. But if you're not having that consistent rush on the other side, then A, you're just going to double Dylan Stewart, and B, you can just keep running the play to the other side and keeping him from having the effect that we think he can have.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably going to be – it wouldn't shock me at all if you saw a similarity there in the way offense kind of approached Dylan Stewart. Because, again, I think when you're game planning for South Carolina's defense, the first thing you see is how much they lost, especially early on in the season when we still are learning a lot about what this defense is going to be like. Yeah, you're losing a lot, but Dylan Stewart's there, so you're going to game plan a lot for him and how to make him a non-factor. And, again, as we've said a few times now, it's really going to be on the other guys in this room to, whether it's a group effort or one guy really stepping up, it's going to be on them to kind of also help create that pressure and take advantage of the opportunity in front of them. Like, if Dylan's not going to be a factor or teams are forcing him to not be a factor, well, someone's got to be, and that opens up an opportunity for someone else to really be a nice complementary piece alongside him.
Yeah, no, Dylan Stewart has the opportunity to be remembered as an all-timer here at South Carolina if he continues to improve off of what he did a season ago, and obviously hopefully he stays healthy and all those kind of things, and he becomes a big part of South Carolina's success this upcoming year, which we certainly think and hope will be the case. We'll transition over back to quarterbacks coming up next, because John Mateer has been in the headlines all week for the wrong reasons. He has put out a statement. What does this mean for the Oklahoma Sooners? So we'll discuss that next. It is the extra point. It's the halftime show. It's our head Jack Belcher, Cale Wilson on your Wednesday on the Game. Welcome back in. Halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic. Tyrad, Jack Beltry, and Kale Wilson along with you on your Wednesday here on The Game. Again, I'll remind you, The Game Summer Golf Classic sponsored by Krager Showrooms coming up next Friday, August 22nd at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia. We hope to see you out there. 9 a.m. tee time. 7:30 is when registration begins. We'll have onion sausages for breakfast. Mimosa bar provided by Saki's Wine and Spirits, as well as Firehouse Subs for lunch. Prize to give away, and the golf gun makes its return. $400 for a team. Call 803-755-2000 and press the number 2 to sign up. Again, 803-755-2000 to sign up for the Games Summer Golf Classic, sponsored by Krager Showrooms. Jack, the offseason has been filled with a lot of conversation revolving around John Mateer, right? Oklahoma is a program that's had it rough in the first couple years under Brent Venables. Yeah, they had the 10-1 year 2 years ago, and the last year in the Big 12, but the first year was last year was and they really need to step up and perform this upcoming year and get themselves back into that 8, 9, 10-win category, probably to save his job. And they had one of the flashier quarterback acquisitions of the offseason with bringing in John Mateer from Washington State, much like Miami did a year ago with Cam Ward. And this guy is either going to sink or swim. He's going to be a superstar. He's going to be a dud. I don't think there's really any in between. I don't think they thought, as camp was rolling on, they were going to have to be talking about his Venmo transactions from 3 years ago, though.
Yeah, so in case you have been living under a rock and have not seen this, which, you look on Twitter the other day and you see some Venmo payments from John Mateer from 2022 popped up to a Richard Roten, and they very explicitly say sports gambling, and then sports gambling in parentheses UCLA versus USC. And then yesterday he came out with a statement just basically saying that the allegations that he participated in sports gambling are false, though I don't understand how that can be false when it explicitly says sports gambling and a specific game as well.
Well, and this is one of those kind of things that, yes, that looks really, really bad. I don't know how they can track this, though. And again, if he was doing this for like FanDuel or DraftKings or whatever, then yeah, you could find his account, see what transactions were made, and say, okay, yeah, he did bet on that game back in 2022. But if this is just buddies hanging out and they're wagering on the games while they're watching them or whatever, and there's no paper trail connecting all this stuff, then that's a lot harder to prove. Now, yes, the fact that he called it sports gambling and listed the specific name of the game leads me to believe that this is probably true, but I have no way of proving this, and I don't think anybody else will either.
No, I mean, again, it's one thing, again, like you said, if it's on one of those gambling websites or whatever, yes, even though it's kind of contradictory since all of sports now, including college football, heavily promotes gambling and stuff.
But as a student athlete, you're still not allowed to do it.
That's what I'm saying, though. I think it's just kind of ironic how that's the case. And again, it's from 3 years ago, so I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Like, if he's doing it with his buddies or whatever, okay, no big deal. Like, who has not done that before, right? You lose a bet, you got to pay up on Venmo.
$5, $10, whatever.
Yeah. I just don't think it should be as big of a story as it is. Again, he said that he didn't do it. You believe him or not, whatever you want to do. But I think it's something we just probably should move on from. And, it is what it is.
I imagine a lot of coaches at the beginning of every single year, especially as they get freshmen that come in, there's some kind of orientation, right? That they sit down and, hey, here's the do's and don'ts of social media. Don't post about this kind of stuff. If you have things in the past, go out and clean them out, all those kind of things. I don't think the thought of Venmo transactions ever crossed anybody's minds like, hey, make sure you don't have any Venmo transactions that could incriminate you at some point down the line, whether it be paying your friend for sports gambling or drugs or something along those lines. At the very least, if you're doing those things, at least lie about it when you have what the purpose is on Venmo.
And now you got people posting about like Arch Manning's Venmo history or whatever, and some of the weird phrases that he has on some of his transactions because you have to type in a description on Venmo.
You do.
Like typically what I'll do when I'm Venmoing is put like an emoji or something, or just like one word of like gas, food,
Sure.
whatever, normal stuff. But then you got these guys, sports gambling, and all these words that probably are not appropriate to
Sure.
talk about on radio. It's strange.
I guess that is the fail-safe for Venmo of like, hey, you have to report or at least put out there what you're paying for, so nefarious activities don't happen, at least through Venmo. But again, you can just lie and type something that's unrelated, and nobody's going to do anything to you. And if John Mateer was involved in sports gambling, I would hope that he'd have a better idea than to actually put that as a transaction instead of just saying the game, which that can mean a lot of things. You could be paying for a ticket to the game. You could be paying for snacks for the game. Like, just do that. Don't make it that obvious where you even have to put out a statement like this in the first place.
But again, these are probably at the time high school kids getting ready for college and stuff that, the brains are not fully developed and all this stuff. But I mean, it's like, how stupid can you be to do something like that? But again, I really don't think he should suffer major consequences for something that, again, it's not as cut and dry as like, oh yeah, he was gambling on FanDuel or Prize Picks. Not as easy as that.
So again, Mateer, a lot of eggs in the basket there at Oklahoma. He's going to be really successful and help that team have a turnaround year compared to last year, and how at least 2 of the first 3 seasons under Brent Venable have gone. But this was pointed out the other day when the AP poll was released that they are tied with South Carolina for most consecutive games against AP-ranked opponents. They will take on Texas, they'll take on South Carolina, they'll take on Ole Miss, they'll take on Tennessee, and they'll take on Alabama all in a row. There is a bye week between Tennessee and Alabama, but still, much like South Carolina, their schedule turns up to another level when you go from October into November, and they do wrap up much like South Carolina will against a very tough opponent in LSU at the end of the regular season as well.
Yeah, don't forget, they also start out the year week 2 at home against number 14 Michigan. So that's going to be under the lights. A lot of pressure in that game, a lot of eyeballs. We know the season that Oklahoma had last year. The defense was great, but man, their offense was massively disappointing. And honestly, they lost their bowl game to, who was it, Army or Navy at the end of the year?
I think it was Army. Or maybe it was Navy.
I think it was Navy. But point is, such a disappointing year for Oklahoma last year. First year in the SEC, and you see their rival Texas going to be one of the Final 4 teams in the college football playoff. A lot of expectations this year to see what Brent Venables and Oklahoma can do, but make no mistake, the schedule is tough, and there really are no easy games or gimme games once October 11th comes. So their work's going to be cut out for them right out of the gate.
Yeah, and obviously, Carolina gets them, I feel like, at a fortunate time, much like they did a year ago, coming off of the rivalry game against Texas. Obviously, have to travel here to South Carolina, and I don't know how good or bad they're going to be, but hopefully, no matter what, Carolina can catch them slipping and pick up a win. And that's like one of those all-time like helmets, right? The one that you're proud to say you saw in person, no matter how good or bad they are at that point in time. Because Oklahoma is one of the most respected and successful programs in the history of college football. And I don't know, I think it's pretty neat they're going to come in here to South Carolina and play this upcoming fall.
Yeah, it was really cool getting to go to OU last year and seeing South Carolina play them. But I'm looking forward to the return trip this year. And honestly, that's one of the benefits of them being in the SEC is you get to see these teams that you never really played when they were in the Big 12 too often, get to play them now pretty often now in the SEC.
Well, if it's a bad year for Brent Venables in year number 4, then he very likely could be fired, and they could be looking for a new head coach come 2026. Would they entertain hiring John Gruden, though? Well, he wants to coach in the SEC. We'll see if we can figure out what the best spot for him would be. Coming up next is wrap up hour number 2 of the halftime show. Tyler, Jack, Kale along with you on your Wednesday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show here on the game. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Kale Wilson. Shout out to Kale. If you're watching on the live stream, we have our I believe it's called a stand-in repeat that sits behind me that has all the game logos on it, and I must have bumped it moving a minute ago because I look up and suddenly it's laying across the desk. So shout out to Kale for thinking fast and propping it back up. I'm glad that I wasn't sitting here when it fell.
Yeah, good on you, man, for being at the right place at the right time, not sitting there. That could have been real good. Shout out to Kale.
That's the magic of live radio, man. We talked about a moment ago, Brent Venables may be on the hot seat going, not maybe, he is on the hot seat going into the season. And if they were to move on from him, they of course have to hire somebody else. There is one former head coach that has made it very clear that he wants to be in the SEC. That being none other than John Gruden. He was speaking at Georgia earlier on this week, and I can't play for you what he said because it is vulgar, but he says, I really want to coach in the SEC to sum it up. For one, that perfectly matches the vibe of John Gruden. He is as football guy as football guys come, and again, he's spent the majority of his career in the NFL. The SEC would be a place that would adapt well to, or I think he would adapt very well to, given his personality and coaching style.
Absolutely. I do wonder how that would look. Again, you know, his past is what it is, but like he's a guy that, I mean, I think would be energetic. You see him now at Barstool having a great time. So he probably better now relates to the younger guys and stuff.
Sure.
So I think this is something that if it happened, it wouldn't be like the craziest thing in the world. He actually started his coaching career at Tennessee as a graduate assistant.
Mm-hmm.
So he has ties to the SEC in some capacity. Granted, most of his time coaching, especially head coaching, has all been in the NFL, but it's not like this would be the crazy. We've seen crazier things happen, I would say.
So, and it's really funny because I want to say it was around the 2017 season when, remember, Tennessee fires Butch Jones. They were going to hire Greg Schiano till the people revolted, and they ended up with Jeremy Pruitt. We all know how that went. I remember Gruden's name being heavily, heavily rumored to Tennessee at that point in time. That obviously didn't end up happening, but and he would go on to return to the Raiders that following year. But yeah, I mean, again, his personality and style, that very, very much fits in the SEC. I just wonder, and again, I'm not thinking about this from the standpoint of what coach might be fired in the next handful of years, but what school would Gruden fit in the best at as a head coach? Like, where do you look at him and say, oh yeah, that makes the most sense?
Like, are we thinking about this just from the standpoint of like, pick a school? Doesn't matter if their coach is not on the hot seat.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you think he's the best fit at Tech, he'd be great fit at Texas, even though Sark isn't going anywhere. You can say that because, again, we're just kind of hypothetically thinking, because I don't think he's going to coach in the SEC, but like if you were to pick a school that would fit him the best, what would it be?
Am I crazy to think South Carolina?
Okay.
I think he could be a good fit here with the energy and, you know, got Sandstorm and all that. I think he could be a good fit here, but I don't think that would ever happen, but I guess.
Honestly, I think Tennessee wouldn't be a bad option because there's a level of nuttiness to the Tennessee fan base that I feel like matches Gruden a lot, that he could kind of go, he could kind of fight crazy with crazy a little bit.
Yeah, no, total. And again, he was a grad assistant there coming out of college, so would not be super far-fetched, but again, they have Josh Heupel there right now. We'll see what happens with Tennessee. But, you know, let's say within the next 5 years, do you think John Gruden is coaching, not let alone again, but in the SEC?
Well, he did when the Nevada court ruled in favor of him the other day in this deal with the NFL. So I could see a pathway of him getting back to the NFL. I don't know. I feel like he's got to coach something, right? I just looked at him. He's 61. He's got a lot of and he's obviously very youthful for somebody that's 61. It feels like he's got a lot of that energy still left in him. Like, if he can find a way to coach somewhere, I think he will.
I mean, there's going to be jobs in the SEC opening up relatively soon, you would think. I mean, what's going to happen with Kentucky? What's going to happen at some of these other schools? Like, what if Tennessee's not very good this year? You know, maybe not right away, but I would think within the next 5 years, there are going to be enough jobs opening up over time. Oklahoma's another interesting one where what happens with Brent Venables, And Gruden's got a Super Bowl ring. I mean, again, he won it with the Bucks back in the early 2000s, and his recent coaching experience was with the Raiders, which obviously did not end too well for him, and the Raiders were just not that good under him. But I think you look at Gruden, 61 years old, like you said, Tyler, someone that you need an energy boost. You need someone that is really invested and wants to be in the college game. I mean, look, Bill Belichick's coaching in college, and we'll see how that transition works. So I think it wouldn't be as far-fetched for a guy like Gruden to come in and maybe not have immediate success, but have a good career at the college level.
You look at the past handful of years, and obviously, you had Herm Edwards at Arizona State, Lovie Smith coached at Illinois. People forgot about that. Now Bill Belichick is at UNC. Nothing is impossible. There is no coach, because again, I never in a million years would have said Bill Belichick is definitely going to come to college football. So nothing's out of the realm of possibility at this point. So maybe Gruden does find his way to an Arkansas or an Oklahoma or one of these schools in the next handful of years if they do move on from their current coach.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, it would not be the craziest thing seeing John Gruden coaching the SEC. Might be a little bit jarring at first just because it's something that's so off the wall. But It's like, this is not the piece of news I was expecting to hear out of his mouth this week. And look, if he wants to do it, more power to him. I think he could definitely go out there and potentially do it successfully.
Yeah, again, he seems to be kind of clearing up some of the issues that he had that ended his NFL coaching tenure. We'll see what that lawsuit or what the case against the NFL and all that ends up shaking out as well. But if he wants to return to coaching, that avenue may not be all that far away. 2 hours in the book, one more hour to go. We'll jump back into what Beamer had to say about the running backs and the T-shirt you can buy to help support the cause of freeing Rasul Faison. That's all coming up next in hour number 3. It is the halftime show here on The Game. Welcome back in 2 o'clock, hour number 3. It is the halftime show brought to you by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Tyler Head, Jack Veltri, Cale Wilson, along with us here on your Wednesday on the game as we move along. It does actually look like the sun is shining. I can barely see out the window onto Gervais Street, but for the lack of sunshine we've had over the course of the past, what feels like 3 weeks at this point, I will take it in. Yes, I am seeing the bright ball of sunshine on my weather app, so I will be going outside when I get off here to try and get whatever vitamin D rays I can because I've been depleted here for a while.
Dude, let me tell you what, the weather has been atrocious lately, and I don't know what it is, but I'm glad. I'm looking outside my window. I'm back home in Fort Mill for a few days now before with football. Not really anything going on football-wise, media or anything this week, but it is. I see some blue skies, and I'm actually going to play golf in a little bit after we're done here. So
nice.
Hopefully, I was worried about the weather coming into the day, but I think we're going to be able to get some holes in and have a good time out there. And, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, perfect weather for it. Again, as we've talked about, you know, those Columbia summer days are not too far away from returning probably. I'm going to go ahead and estimate that the South Carolina State, the first home game, it's going to be no less than 98 degrees that day when you're tailgating because that's just how it typically rolls, it seems like, for the first game of the year.
And thank God that is a night game. But I think you're totally right on it. I bet we don't see below 80 degrees until maybe like the Alabama game. Like it's going to be a little bit.
Yeah, that's just that's the standard around here, unfortunately. And again, we'll attack that head on as time goes on. Yesterday, we'll get into a little bit more of what Coach Beamer had to say in a second. But we also learned that if you want to show your support for the ongoing saga that is Rasul Faison versus the NCAA. Well, Jack, now you can buy a T-shirt to support it. Hashtag #FreeSewell is available for purchase. Maybe we should go around and get everybody a shirt, and we can all collectively wear it one day on the air.
Yeah, look, it's you got to do what you got to do, right? It's desperate times call for desperate measures, and look, Sewell's got to get that NIL money somehow, right? With putting out the T-shirt. I'm sure a lot of people will buy. Again, we've talked about this for months now. It's kind of getting to a point where it's way past ridiculous that no decision has been made. I love how a few weeks ago when fall camp started, that a practice waiver got cleared within hours of being submitted by his attorney, Darren Heitner. But it's taken, we're in August now, the 8th month of the calendar year in 2025, and we still have no answer on if Rasul Faison will be playing week 1 with 18 days left to go till kickoff. It's something.
Again, I go through this whole process just kind of assuming it's not going to happen, hoping for a surprise. I laid out earlier, I feel like it's one of those things that, because once we get into the season, this just is no longer a talking point because we'll have so many other things going on, reacting to the last game, looking ahead to the next one, that I feel like when we're least expecting it, again, pick a random day in October, they were like, hey, by the way, he's eligible. Good luck. And it's like, okay, well, now he can play this weekend, and hey, that'd be great, obviously, and good for him. But yeah, I feel like when we finally just kind of give up and go, whatever, he's just out for the year, then they'll be like, oh, hey, by the way, he can play now.
Here's the thing to think about, though, a real quick hypothetical. Like, what if he does get cleared? Let's say going into like Oklahoma or something, like a random day during the week. It's like, oh, he's ready for Oklahoma week. Well, what if Oscar Attaway or Howell or Fuller is tearing it up on the field? That's your RB1. It's like, what do you do? I mean, it's a real question to think about, honestly.
I think it would be a good problem to have. And let's hear real quick, forgot to tell you about this, Cale, but cut number 15. This is Coach Beamer talking yesterday about Oscar Attaway, who right now seems to be like your lead candidate to be RB1.
Yeah, I love Oscar. He has told me that story, or I heard him tell that story to someone. He did not. Maybe he did when we were recruiting him. I don't remember him telling me that. I heard that over the summer, that story as well, that he watched the little office spoof that we put out and said that I'd love to play for that guy. And I appreciate him saying that. It's pretty cool to hear. And then there's a relationship with him. He's a wise old soul. I mean, he's an older guy that he's seen it all and has worked really, really hard. Really good football player who's gotten better in his last year of college football, and has great leadership skills, and a testament to him. He's on the president or chairman of the SEC advisory committee, or whatever the official word is. I know I probably just butchered that, but representing all the student athletes in the SEC. So when we had our league meetings down in Destin back in May, he was down there, one of a handful of student athletes from across the SEC, that he was the president of that group, which says a lot about his leadership skills and the kind of person he is.
So Oscar Attaway, again, great dude off the field. I have not got to meet him myself, but you guys obviously talked to him a lot, talked to him yesterday in his media availability. Seems like the dude that everybody likes and everybody enjoys having as a teammate. And again, he played a good complement to Rocket Sanders a year ago and carried a little bit more of a load when asked to at times last year, with Rocket dealing with being nicked up a little bit as well. But again, it kind of seems like he's on the track to be the guy this year. What that means exactly in terms of success, we don't know, but he's going to get his opportunities as long as Faison is still waiting on his eligibility ruling.
Yeah, I think you feel pretty good about Oscar being your RB1 going into the season. Now, is he Rasul Faison? Is he Rocket Sanders? No. Those guys are, 1,000-yard rushers in their careers. Oscar's a very talented running back who obviously showed in the bowl game last year that he's more than capable of handling the load. And keep in mind, that bowl game, he was injured. He was not 100%. As he said yesterday to us in media availability, nowhere close to 100% out there. And he still had over 100 all-purpose yards against Illinois, and including a touchdown too. So he is a guy that I'm very excited about. If you're a South Carolina fan and you go into the season without Faison starting or being able to play, you feel good about him. And then hopefully that leads to the other guys in the room also stepping up around him, guys like Jawarn Howell, Matthew Fuller, guys that South Carolina is very excited about. Hopefully they're able to get more opportunities with this window that's open if Faison can't play, and all those guys take advantage of it.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that, we obviously hope everybody in this room can go out there and certainly be successful. But when you talk about Oscar Attaway, and yeah, he's not been a feature back at an SEC school before, and that's certainly something that is going to be a challenge, because of course it is, but he's got a lot of experience. Again, he and Faison both started their college days. I know Faison's career necessarily is a little bit funky with what years he plays and what years he didn't, but they've been around both 5-6 years in the college game now and got a ton of experience. And Attaway, again, somebody that just off that experience you hope translates to having success on the field. Again, you can use them in a variety of ways, running the ball, catching the ball out of the backfield. Similarly to like what you had last year with Rocket Sanders, that as long as you have a viable threat at running back to divert some attention away from Lenora Sellers, then those guys are serving their purpose.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what you need. Like you said, diverting away the attention from Sellers. And so much of South Carolina's success this season is going to be about what does Sellers do, not just as a mobile quarterback in the run game, but what does he do in the passing game? And the way you're going to be able to see what he can really do as a passer is if you have somewhat of a threat in the run game. You want to be more than a one-dimensional offense. And we know teams are going to be targeting Sellers and trying to make sure that he's ineffective in the run game, and maybe that just forces him to throw the ball more. But, again, what worked last year was having that threat of, oh, man, Sellers can run, but also, hey, you got Rocket Sanders in the backfield, you got Oscar Attaway. If that is what South Carolina can kind of find this year, whether it's with Faison or not, if Oscar Attaway is your RB1 and he's having the type of success that you hope he can have, that he's proven to have as an RB1 before at North Texas, you feel pretty good going into the year.
Yeah, and look, you don't, as much as you'd love to, you don't have to have somebody that's going to go out there and bust off 1,000+ yards, right? Like Sellers is going to do a lot in the run game himself. You just need good compliments. Again, particularly if we're talking about like RPOs, right? You need somebody that, as Sellers is reading how the defense is reading the play, somebody that can believe that, okay, they are going to hand this off to Attaway or Howell or whoever it may be, and have to make that choice on either covering the back or covering Sellers when it comes to those kind of things. So, again, we're going to have to see it on display. We're hearing all the good things, which, again, you expect to hear as you're going through fall camp. And, again, hopefully it translates to when we see them on the field here in 18 days.
Yeah, I mean, again, that is the ultimate goal, is that you have a legit threat in the backfield. Again, Attaway did not have the type of success that you'd like for an RB1 going into this year. But again, that was not his role last year. Again,
Sure.
he was the complimentary guy to Rocket Sanders, and he did his job very well. Had some nice moments last year. Again, the bowl game was his coming out performance as a Gamecock, and we'll see what he can do against SEC defenses this year. But he's an intelligent football player, very good dude, someone that has been there, done that. And again, he's been in college football since 2019, so exciting to see what he could bring to the table this year.
I also love the fact, like, Oscar is not a name you hear a lot in younger people today. I think that further fuels the, like, he's the, one of the grandpas of the team, that he has such a older name like Oscar, and he's, he can be 25 here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, he'll be turning 25 this season, and it's a cool name. That's his dad's name as well, and shout out to the Attaway family. Very nice family that he's got there, well raised, and you can see why Oscar is one of the more beloved guys on this team. I mean, he's a wise old soul, like Beamer said. I mean, he's definitely an integral part of what this team has been last year and going into this season.
Yeah, I'm certainly excited to see what he's going to be able to do there. Again, assuming that right now he's got to be RB1, because again, the phase-on thing just is not happening at least anytime soon. And I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised, but if we get to the end of the year and nothing's changed, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've been shocked by it. Right?
Yeah. No. I mean, look, I'm not holding out much hope at all. But again, crazy things can happen, and I'm sure it'll happen when we least expect it. So.
Well, and now you can at least buy a hashtag Free Soul T-shirt to show your support. Do you think? Okay, all right. Do you think for like the first game against SC State, how much of the student section could possibly be wearing this T-shirt?
Like, how much is this T-shirt going for? Is the real question. Like, we're talking like $10, $15, because those college kids, they got a little bit cheap. So. I don't know. I would say a lot of them. It'd be pretty cool if they like gave away like the towels during the game, and it's like on the towels it says "Free Soul." Like that would be pretty cool. But I think a good bit of the fan base would definitely get behind it.
Yeah, something to just again show your support, and I don't know, maybe that can influence some kind of change. Though I highly doubt it. Some news coming out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. They have named a starter for week number 1, and no, it's not the person you think it is. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the halftime show. It's our head, Jack Beltry, Cale Wilson producing on the other side of the glass here on your Wednesday on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Kate Wilson, along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. Jack, I'm in my 6th consecutive hour of doing radio today. Sometimes I can get a little bit cross-eyed and I can misread things. So I apologize for setting off a false alarm going to break there, because the quarterback situation in Michigan is not what I thought it was when this report came out earlier today from Pete Nakos, where he tweeted about Jordan Denegal, who's going to be starting in week number 1 for San Diego State. But here's where the confusion comes in. He did post a picture of him in his Michigan uniform where he was last year. And in reading it very quickly, I assumed that means he was starting for Michigan over Bryce Underwood, which, again, set off the alarm bells if that happens. However, not the case. Michigan transfer starting for San Diego State. But in reading the replies to this, I'm not the only one that got fooled by that initially.
Yeah, look, I got to be honest. I'm the one that sent it over to you during one of our breaks or whatever, just to give us something new to talk about that popped up. And I'm like, oh, wait. I read it quick as well. I'm like, wait. So this guy's starting for Michigan.
And in the process of talking and looking down at my phone at the same time, again, I didn't quite put 2 and 2 together. And again, his photo is in a Michigan uniform, so an easy mistake to make. But no, Jordan Denegal, a Michigan transfer, starting for San Diego State in week number 1.
Yeah, and you look at the comments under Pete's post. I mean, the way he worded it also did not help at all, because you very quickly read that. You're like, oh, man, he's starting for Michigan week 1 against San Diego State, which San Diego State's not on Michigan's schedule at all. So, I mean, a lot of the first comments on this is $13 million on the bench, which I thought is very funny for Bryce Underwood, who obviously probably will start for the Wolverines this season. But that definitely caught us both off guard. So apologies for the misinterpretation of that.
Well, see, we didn't officially report it yet. We just teased it, and then we double checked it there in the break and realized, oh, that's not exactly what we thought it was. So we did not falsely report on anything.
Yeah, no, which is good to see. So no alarms sounded at Michigan, fortunately.
I will say, though, they have not officially named a starter as of yet for Michigan as they get set to start their season coming up here in a couple weeks, though the assumption is that Bryce Underwood's going to be that guy. I mean, he's getting paid, what, $2.5–3 million per year to be Michigan's, savior, essentially, because let's be honest, their quarterback play last year after J.J. McCarthy departed for the NFL, god-awful may not describe it accurately. They could not functionally throw the football forward the entire year. They couldn't throw the football against Ohio State, yet somehow beat them because Ohio State just wasn't on their game that day. But, yeah, Bryce Underwood, I mean, they paid him a lot of money to pull him away from LSU, but he's expected to come in to be the savior of this offense.
You bring him in, you pay him the amount of money that you did. Again, getting him to come here. I mean, seemed like he was going to go to LSU, but, again, Michigan was able to flip him and bring him in to their program. And you look at their quarterback room, you have Davis Warren returning with the most experience amongst the group as a senior who started 9 games in 2024. But you're also mentioning the fact of, that offense was god-awful last year. Mm-hmm. So I doubt that's the route they want to go down. You have a senior transfer coming in, Mikey Keene from Fresno State, who's in his final year of eligibility. And he's worked with offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey before, and again, you have another transfer coming in with Jake Garcia, and you have Jaden Davis, who's actually from South Carolina. But ultimately, you have the top-ranked quarterback of the class of 2025 with Bryce Underwood enrolling early, coming in. I think it'd be a shock if he didn't start for the Wolverines come week 1.
Quickly, you mentioned Jake Garcia. He's one of the most fascinating quarterback prospects of the past handful of years because this guy does not stay in a single place for more than 5 minutes, it seems like.
Yeah, let's see. So I'm quickly looking him up. The pictures that come up: East Carolina, Miami, Michigan. Now, I mean, my gosh, this guy definitely does not.
He was also at Missouri as well.
Jeez, I mean,
he's what we call a U-Haul All-American.
Yeah, so you want to talk about a guy that's been at 4 schools.
Well,
I mean, talk about a guy that's indecisive.
Let's remember this as well. I don't know if you remember this back when he was in high school. He's from California. I believe it was the COVID year where his school was not going to play when he was already committed to Miami. So he transferred to South Georgia to play at, I want to say Valdosta High School, to play for Rush Probst. Transfers there, his parents had to get legally separated to ensure that he'd be able to transfer with his dad and play at this school. And then, like, early on in the season, they did a Netflix series on it for Titletown USA, or Titletown High, I think. And he was a subject of that because early in the season, they ruled him ineligible because of the move. He then transferred to Grayson High School in central North Georgia, around where I'm from, to wrap up his high school career. Goes to Miami and then just proceeds to bounce here, there, and everywhere, where he's ultimately now at Michigan. And I don't expect him to see the field too much this year in that very, very busy quarterback room.
That is a crazy story. I don't think I've ever heard of a kid that you see it with college all the time, how guys bounce around everywhere. This kid's no exception, but
sure.
Bouncing around to different high schools is it's kind of crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, again, that was during COVID, so things were kind of weird back then. But yes, I remember the story of him and his parents having to legally separate so we could make that move. And again, but this thing's like he was already committed to Miami, so it's not like he was trying to impress people and like, hey, I need to get a scholarship to a bigger school. Like, no, you're already committed to a Power 4 school. Why have to go through all these hoops to play? I guess the continuity of playing your senior season, I guess. But yeah, it's not transpired well in his college career, and he's not got too many stats to fall back on. I don't think he has a career at the next level at this point.
Well, probably not, considering he's bounced here, there, and everywhere. But it does seem like Bryce Underwood's job, and we'll see what he does with it. I think it's going to be very intriguing to see if he does start for the Wolverines this year, what kind of ROI, return on investment, they get for putting that much stock into him. A kid that has never played college football before, but he's supposed to be the next best thing. This might be what Michigan needs to really get themselves back on track. Because, again, it was only 2 years ago they won the national championship with J.J. McCarthy under center.
So I have a question in terms of what they might actually do, because they do start their season against New Mexico in week number 1 at home. Again, non-conference team or a G5 team, you should have no problem beating them. He might not start that game. Let's be honest. And this is something we've seen plenty of times before, where a more experienced guy will start, especially against a lesser opponent like that. He'll get an opportunity to play, and then they'll kind of see, okay, where is he at from an in-game standpoint before the week 2 game against Oklahoma? Like, I don't know if you hand him the reins right away. Maybe say, you know what, if this game goes the way we think it's going to go, you're going to have an entire second half to go out there and ball out. But maybe you kind of slowly integrate him into this before you feel comfortable truly handing him the reins of the offense.
And think about it this way. Week number 2, what's the big game coming up for Michigan?
Yep.
They go to Oklahoma. That's going to be really tough, under the lights. I think this is what you got him for, in that you want him playing in these big moments and helping you win right away. I can also understand the sentiment of, hey, you have a bunch of veteran guys, transfers, seniors that have been here before. Maybe they're not better than Bryce Underwood, but maybe that's what you need right now is you let Bryce maybe develop a little bit. But again, you put so much money into him. I just would find it hard to believe that you're not trying to play him right out of the gate, especially if he looks the part during these scrimmages in fall camp.
According to Sharon Moore yesterday, the announcement of a starter will be on game week, which will be obviously 2 weeks from now, ahead of that game against New Mexico to start Michigan season. Again, I guess I wouldn't be shocked if they said, okay, Bryce Underwood would go ahead and start, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they allow maybe like a Davis Warren, just from an experience standpoint, to go out there, get the game started, and then, you know, when you're up by a couple touchdowns, then turn it over to Bryce Underwood and see what happens.
I do wonder, do they run a multi-quarterback system, though? That's the...
Maybe so. I feel like, and again, you can get away with that against New Mexico. That's not going to be a problem for a team like Michigan. But I feel like, especially against Oklahoma, that kind of thing doesn't work. You got to decide by week number 2 what guy you're riding with.
No, totally. I mean, I think it has to be Bryce. But again, I also understand, like, if they're cool with waiting and seeing this thing through, and having a little bit of patience with him to let him develop, then by all means, start one of the older guys. You did bring in 2 transfers for a reason, I think.
So we'll see what becomes of that on game week for Michigan coming up here in a couple of weeks. You know, I was looking at the AP poll yesterday, trying to come up with things to talk about for the show today, and I realized we are overlooking one major college football playoff national championship contender, and we'll discuss that coming up next. It is the Halftime Show. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Wednesday on the Game. Tyler Head here for our friends over at Pro Swing Columbia. I've been telling you about it, but I'll remind you once again, coming up this weekend, you can take part in Swing for the Cause, a course and sim challenge, which is a 2-day charity golf event supporting Prisma Health Children's Hospital in Columbia. It is an event that is open to all skill levels, and this unique event features indoor golf simulator at Pro Swing on August 16th and 17th. That's this upcoming weekend, followed by a traditional 18-hole, two-person Captain's Choice tournament at Cobblestone Golf Club on August the 21st. They certainly want you to take part, and again, it benefits the Prisma Health Children's Hospital as well. So sign up for Swing for a Cause by going online to proswingcolumbia.com or give them a call at 803-592-3916 if you want more information on that. Pro Swing Columbia and the Swing for a Cause Course and Sim Challenge supporting Prisma Health Children's Hospital in Columbia. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you. Kel Wilson producing on the other side of the glass on your Wednesday Here on the game, another reminder that the game Summer Golf Classic, sponsored by Krager Showrooms, formerly known as the Nest and the Vista, is coming up a week from Friday, August 22nd, out at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia. Tee time's at 9. Registration begins at 7:30 that morning. Gonna have onion sausages for breakfast, the mimosa bar provided by Saki's Wine and Spirits, and Firehouse Subs for lunch. Prize to give away, and the golf gun makes its return, and we want to see you out there. If you want to take part, it's only $400 for a team. Give Charwood a call at 803-755-2000. Press the number 2 to sign up. Again, 803-755-2000. Press the number 2 to sign up for the Games Summer Golf Classic, sponsored by Krager Showrooms. It is the halftime show, by the way, sponsored by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Jack, I pride myself on trying to learn as much as I can constantly about everything in college football, especially as we get closer to the start of the season. Reading, listening to podcasts, watching things on YouTube, on TV. And one thing that has been very consistent that dawned on me recently is nobody's talking about Oregon. Oregon, the number 7 team in the AP poll, 13-0 last year through the Big Ten championship game, the number 1 seed in the first 12-team college football playoff. Yeah, they got their doors blown off in the in the Rose Bowl by Ohio State, but nonetheless, they were very successful a year ago, and for whatever reason, nobody's paying them any attention right now.
It's a little confusing to me, honestly, because we talk about Texas, Clemson, Ohio State, Penn State. Heck, we're talking about Michigan more, obviously. South Carolina probably gets more talked about right now. But Oregon's like that sleeping giant that, like, we really have not discussed. I can't remember a time where you and I have really discussed Oregon at all. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, yeah, they got the doors blown off them in the Rose Bowl. And that's our last memory of them, in that they were the number 1 overall seed in the Rose Bowl. And they lose 41-21 to Ohio State in a game that really wasn't even that close. Let's be honest. I mean, that game was over at halftime, and it was such a disappointing end to what really looks like a promising season. Again, 13-0, first year in the Big Ten, winning the conference championship game. It's like, it was kind of a surprise. And you look at Oregon this year, it's like, okay, like, what are they going to do that is better than last year? And are they going to be able to show up when the moments really matter the most?
And look, like a lot of the major teams, they did lose a lot last year to, the draft and things like that. And they've hit the portal really hard. So we don't have a full scope of understanding what exactly this team's going to be. And I think a lot of that does stem from Dante Moore as well, because you've had a run of really good quarterbacks here as of late. Bo Nix, obviously Dylan Gabriel as well. And Dante Moore, let's face it, 2 years ago when he started at Oregon, at UCLA, wasn't all that great. His numbers very meh. Barely completed over 50% of his passes, threw almost as many interceptions as he had touchdowns. So I can understand why that's not generating a lot of excitement, but I feel like that could be a case of him just not having a ton of help around him at a place like UCLA that struggled mightily 2 years ago under Chip Kelly. That having the resources and talent and skill with him now at Oregon, he may look a whole heck of a lot better.
Yeah, and that's definitely the hope for Oregon this year. I think having a good quarterback under center is going to really make a big difference between, last year, Dylan Gabriel, really good at Oregon, getting to the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Great season for him. But also, he had some pretty good weapons around him. You had Tez Johnson, obviously, Trayshawn Holden. Both those guys are gone. Now you have Evan Stewart, has a knee injury, so he's going to be, sidelined going into the season. It's going to be very interesting to see how Dante Moore can really operate with this offense. Now, you have Mekhi Hughes coming in, really good running back from Tulane. You have, Bryce Butcher, another guy that is returning. So we'll see what happens for Oregon this season, but it's I don't think it's going to be as good of a season as it was for them last year.
Here's where I'll disagree with you on that. I believe in Dan Lanning as a head coach. He comes from the Nick Saban, Kirby Smart tree. And look, what he took over at Oregon 3 years ago, it was not a program that was in the dumps. It was not a program that he had to rebuild from the ground up. Mario Cristobal left him a pretty good situation when he split for Miami, and Dan Lanning has gotten better every single year. Year number 1, won 10 games. Year number 2, made the Pac-12 championship game, lost obviously to Washington twice in the process of that season. Last year, undefeated regular season, won the freaking Big Ten in his first year there. And then, yeah, they were the number one seed in the playoffs and lost to Ohio State. But as we know, that Ohio State team was on a different level through the months of December and January. And again, they keep taking steps forward. I'm not going to be the least bit surprised if they are once again a 12-13 or a 11-12-1 team in the regular season and positioning themselves to once again have one of those top seeds and maybe go a little bit deeper in the playoff this year.
I mean, let's look at their schedule. I mean, Montana State, that's a win. Oklahoma State, I would say that's a win. At Northwestern, that's probably a win. Oregon State at home, I'd say that's a win. The big game on the schedule here is under the lights, week 5, they go to Penn State.
Is that the whiteout game? It should be.
Yes, it is. So that's a rematch of the Big Ten championship last year. Beaver Stadium, under the lights. That's going to be tough. That is going to be tough. So I think that's one game right before bye week where it's like, if Penn State or if Oregon can win that game, you feel pretty good because then they play, Indiana at home, Rutgers on the road, Wisconsin at home. Then a bye week before you go to Kinnick to play Iowa, which Iowa can always be a tricky place to go. And then you round it out with Minnesota, USC, and at Washington. The schedule, I think, is very manageable for Oregon to get at least 10 wins, I think. But again, a lot of it is going to hinge on, okay, the new guys that you brought in to replace what you lost, particularly on offense. Can they be – they don't have to be as good as they were last year because 13-0 good is something special.
Sure.
But can they be good enough to get to that 10-win mark, which is basically the cutoff line to make the college football playoff right now?
I think Dan Lanning probably likes not being talked about a whole lot. Again, he comes from that Nick Saban, Kirby Smart coaching tree to where he's not looking for headlines, right? He's not looking for everybody to talk about his team. I feel like flying under the radar or disrespect, I guess is maybe the way that he's phrasing it, is exactly what he wants as a head coach, is kind of that motivating factor to go out there and surprise a lot of people. And yeah, as you mentioned, they don't play Ohio State this year. Penn State seems to be the toughest challenge they have. And let's be honest, James Franklin's shown the ability to not be able to win these games. So you almost kind of give Oregon the benefit of the doubt because that will likely be a top 10 matchup when that game rolls around. And James Franklin just can't seem to beat top 10 teams to save his life for whatever reason.
But Penn State at night, they've renovated that stadium.
It's going to be a wild environment, that's for sure.
It definitely is going to be. But again, if Oregon can get through that game, hey, look, I don't know what to expect from Indiana this year. Or teams like Wisconsin, Rutgers, Iowa. The point is, if you get through that Penn State game, the rest of the schedule, I feel like, really shakes out for maybe Oregon does go undefeated again. It's not entirely off the table, considering the fact that they do avoid getting to play like Ohio State, Illinois, no Michigan, teams like that would probably pose much more of a difficult challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think Oregon's going to be a fun team to watch as they always are. And again, it's just crazy to me that they've somehow managed to fly under the radar through most of this offseason, but that'll change pretty quickly once we actually start playing games. And I don't know, maybe it's the element of them being on the West Coast where, and look, being in the Big Ten, they're not playing the 10:30 to 11 o'clock games like they were in the Pac-12, but I guess we're still getting used to the visibility of these teams from the West Coast that we just didn't have for so many years.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't think we've talked enough about the West Coast teams really at all this offseason, especially for us on the East Coast, because, we're an SEC country. That's what we're paid to talk about, and,
sure.
We do it a lot. So
yeah,
with these teams like Oregon and stuff, I mean, they're very good, but definitely flying a bit under the radar for sure.
Does Dan Lanning have a national championship in the next 5 years?
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes. I think they'll find the right quarterback, the right guy to lead them there. Again, it's I don't think it'll happen this year, but again, it's so hard to win now with the way the playoff is. Like going 13-0 in the regular season is great, but you still have to win 3-4 more games in the playoff, and that could be tough as Oregon learned last year.
I think Steve Sarkisian is the next head coach in line that doesn't already have a national championship to get one. Obviously, he's got the roster to do that, coming up this upcoming season. But, yeah, Lanning, with the resources, the way he's been able to get better every single year, that championship, though it would be the first for Oregon. Again, the clowning thing about them is they've never won a national championship of any kind in college football, and that I feel like that is going to come to an end here in the next handful of years.
It's got to. I mean, Lanning's off to a great start with Oregon, 35-6 through 3 seasons. But again, it's going to be about, can he win the games that really matter most as you get into December and potentially January for the Ducks.
Yep, absolutely. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the show. Coach Beamer wants to be on Outer Banks, but I feel like he might fit in on some other kind of shows a little bit better. We'll discuss that coming up next as we wrap up today's edition of the Halftime Show. It's Outerhead, Jack Beltry, Kale Wilson producing on your Wednesday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Cale Wilson wrapping things up on your Wednesday before they turn things over to Jay and Terry for today's edition of the post-game show. Before we get out of here, though, Coach Beamer talked about a lot of different things in his media availability yesterday. We talked about his defending of his wife's cookies, which good on you for doing that. And you know, I can't believe I guess I can believe people would be that dumb to go online and, you know, harass someone about the way their cookies look on a Netflix series. But he also talked about, despite the fact that he's been on the Any Given Saturday, still not getting any calls when it comes to making a cameo appearance on apparently his favorite show, Outer Banks.
Yeah, I mean,
not.
so
And it bothers me too. I was at Kiowa did I tell you all the story? I was at Kiowa like 2 weeks ago, right before we started practice, and it was like an evening, and they filmed some of the episodes on the ocean course there at Kiowa. And there was a night I was driving back from dinner with my kids. I think Emily wasn't there, and I had taken the kids to eat, and we were driving back, and I passed like a bus. I saw the bus coming in that morning. I was going to play golf, and normally you don't see charter buses coming onto Kiowa Island. So I'm thinking, maybe it's a golf group or something going out to the ocean course. But then later that evening, like 12 hours later, I saw the same bus leaving, and then it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute, could that be like cast or like extras that they brought out on a bus? And then right after the bus, I passed all these trucks, Jordan, that said like wardrobe and different things like that. I'm like, hold up. Am I here at Outer Banks is filming like a half mile from where I'm standing and they didn't call me? So no, I have not, but I'm getting closer if I was on the island when they're filming it as well. Because I do know they were filming this summer. I saw that.
Maybe one more season, the Netflix people will come around.
Maybe. Win some more games.
So I said this earlier that now I get it, that's his favorite show, but I feel like Outer Banks being the drama series that it is, I don't know if that quite fits a Shane Beamer cameo. Like, I feel like I'd want to see him in a show where he can have a little bit more fun, you know what I mean, and kind of be, you know, energetic and upbeat and all those kind of things, because that's what his personality is, right?
Yeah, I could see a way in which he would fit the Outer Banks vibes. Like, you got the kooks and the pogues, and I could definitely see him being, you know, one of those, like, I mean, it's very Southern in a lot of ways with the country club aspect of it. So I could see Shane maybe being like a background character like that way or something. But, you know, look, they've had Armando Baycott on it. That's one of the more notable.
Which he brought up. Was that last week that he brought that up?
He brought it up last week. I think he brought it up yesterday. So he talked about Outer Banks for a little bit. He was very displeased with one particular main character that died in season 4, which I'm very much against the way that happened too. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. But yeah, I think a show that he could fit in on. You know, it's funny. He brought it up yesterday. The Office with the spoof that he did a few years ago. And there's that new spin-off of The Office coming out.
The Paper. The
Paper. I don't know how it's going to be, but I think Shane could very much fit the vibe of that, as that one little scene that he, basically recreated a few years ago. It went over very well.
The scene that Oscar Attaway apparently saw and decided, hey, I want to come play for this guy.
Yeah, no, and then again, I was rewatching the highlight of it yesterday. He's running, 13 miles an hour or whatever, and then Juju McDowell outruns him at 14, and then Shane's running by a car at 31 miles an hour, which is a very Office type of moment. So I think that would be a kind of show he could definitely have his personality on.
I suggested maybe King of the Hill, and they did reboot King of the Hill that came out last week, set in modern times. Now, I don't think he'd be on there as Shane Beamer, the South Carolina football coach, but I feel like he could play a character in the fictional world of Arlen, Texas that might fit into the show.
He totally could. Again, Shane's definitely a guy that has a unique personality, where he's someone that's very energetic and a fun guy to definitely be around. So I think he'd be good on Outer Banks with season 5 coming out. That's the last season, so one more opportunity for Shane to get on. But if that call doesn't come from Netflix, there are definitely some other opportunities.
I feel like, because again, he's talked about this in the press conferences, I feel like, assuming that Carolina's going to be a part of this Any Given Saturday season 2, I feel like you got to say it directly to the camera, right? Like when you're on there, be like, hey, Netflix, get me on Outer Banks and see if that can get some wheels turning, because that may be more of a direct shot across the bow that gets you what you're looking for.
Because I doubt the Netflix executives are watching what Shane Beamer has to say in his weekly press conferences.
Probably not. I don't think Netflix executives are combing through, the articles on Gamecock Central to see what he had to say about their shows.
Yeah, I think it'd do a lot more for him to just do it on Netflix's airwaves and let it be known that, hey, I want to be on Outer Banks.
Or, all right, let's say, Carolina beats LSU in Tiger Stadium in October, and, Holly Rowe or whoever's interviewing him on the field after the game. And great win, by the way, Outer Banks, give me a call. I want to be on the show. That might move the needle, too.
I think he's running out of time, too, because I think season 5 is already underway with filming. So he's got his work cut out for him if he wants to make a quick cameo.
Yeah, maybe week 1 against Virginia Tech. Drop it then and see if you can wiggle into one of these last episodes.
Or maybe, hear me out, maybe he's already filmed a cameo and he's having to keep
maybe he's playing coy. Okay.
Dude, that's typically the way these things go. So
that's true. Yeah, maybe it's like, you can't say it until it's actually released type of thing. Yeah. I don't know.
It wouldn't shock me. So.
We'll see. Jack, appreciate you filling in, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, man. See you tomorrow.
That'll do it for the halftime show. Coming up next, it is the postgame show with Jay and Terry on your Wednesday here on The Game.